Hey everyone, welcome back to another review of the new contrast paints. As always, my name is Jay, and in this video I'm going to be addressing Zenithal. One of the questions that was put out to me by a viewer was, how do you think these things will work if you do a Zenithal priming? Zenithal would be, hit all black from all directions, gray from like a 45-degree angle, white from above, and in this case I'm going to try Wraithbone just to warm it up a little bit. But how would it work with them? Do you think it'll end up nicely? Because it is another way of adding another dimension to your paint jobs prior to painting, and especially with these contrast paints, which are designed to save time, could they work really well? Because otherwise you could just prime it, Zenithal, paint it with your contrast paints, and then it will lead to even more color variation on the model and more depth. So it's an interesting approach, and today I'm going to be trying it out. I'll be trying it out on a Chaos Space Marine again, and just trying out creating a Zenithal appearance first, and then going over it with some contrast paints and seeing how it reacts. And let's try it out. I'm excited. I've been really digging these contrast paints. I've been really enjoying working with them. So let's see how it works in this week's video.
Alright, so I started off by priming the entire model with black primer from Badger Stynylrez. My black Stynylrez primer. I use my Badger Patriot 105 because that is my go-to airbrush for all my airbrushing. So as you can see, I'm just getting a nice solid coat. It does appear shiny at first, but is my favorite primer series by far. It dries matte and it is really nice. I find it really adheres to the model and keeps the definition on the model, and it's by far my favorite one. I highly recommend Stynylrez black primer. So first, as I said, I'm just covering the whole model with black primer, and next I will be changing it to a gray. For the gray, it is a mid-tone gray. It is Stynylrez gray primer. Now you may want to just, if you had access to the new gray primer from GW, you could just use that from a shaker can. But I'm just once again going to switch up my primers. Put my the Badger Stynylrez gray primer in my Patriot, and then hit the model from about a 45-degree angle. So as you can see, I'm picking up on the raised areas. I'm just hitting, as you can see, everything that's basically not facing vertically will be gray. Everything that is facing vertically will be black. Obviously downwards, I mean. But you see now, there's two tones to it, the gray and the black. And then for my final color, I decided to go with Wraithbone instead of a white, because I did think that this was going to really tone down the brightness of the colors. So from my final color, I took Wraithbone, then down with some airbrush thinner, and I hit the model from above with Wraithbone. Now I did intentionally go maybe slightly better than above, a little bit more of an angle, because I really wanted to get as much of the top parts covered in Wraithbone as I can, because I think that this will be the key to bring this paint to life. I am a little worried at this point that it was going to be a little dull, so the Wraithbone is a great way of just bringing some warmth to the model, and especially when we're trying out the new colors with it, I think it will really work with it well. So as you can see now, it has definitely some variation at a time.
Okay, now that it's dry, as you can see, I did pretty much a Zenithal. As you can see, it's just a little bit high, a little bit lower of an angle from the top part to create the warmer. But as you can see, it's very Zenithal. And I used, as I said, a Wraithbone because I wanted to create warmer tones. I was worried that the cold tones on top of the grays just may lead to some really dull colors. But today we're going to test whether or not it will Zenithal with Blood Angels Red. I figured Blood Angels Red is a great color to test this with, because it'll interact well with, all three tones. It is dark enough to go against the gray, so we'll see. I'm going to close my window because it's getting a little loud. There we go. And let's take some Blood Angels Red, and of course our handy dandy shade brush, as always, and apply a nice coat over the miniature. Let's do this. So I'm just going to open it up, give it a good shake, of course. And yeah, I'm excited to see how this goes. It does have great pigmentation, so I'm thinking this particular color will do well. I don't know about all colors, but I can't really test all colors against Zenithal. Maybe a yellow or something would be good next. test. Okay, so as you can tell, my gray it's a dark gray. It's a medium gray, right? But it does. You can already tell there's some variation in the tones. Interesting. Let's keep going here. I like it so far. I've been really digging these paints, as you can see by the reviews that I've been making. I've been having a good time with them so far. This is interesting. Okay. But I'm really impressed. I do feel that some people are going to get a lot of use out of these paints. I really do. There's going to be a lot of use. I feel that it's going to help rid the world of unpainted models for sure. It just depends on the certain army and the quality, the painting quality that they want to paint to. But again, if you are batch painting a whole army, these paints will really save you a lot of time, even in certain colors. And as I said, combined with a simple dry brush, as I've been doing with my yellows and my whites in my previous, if you haven't seen my previous review videos, go check them out. But a simple dry brush, which doesn't take very long at all, because again, the amount of time you're saving by just, priming and base coating, you can easily take a moment to do a quick dry brush. And the dry brush, I find, is what's really bringing these models to life. For sure. I really do feel that the dry brush really just makes the models pop, and also takes it to from a basic standard to a tabletop standard. A little bit of highlights really goes a long way. It really does. And with these paints, they are nice, but they as I said, a quick dry brush really brings them to life. So let's keep going. Just a nice even coat, preferably, over all the pieces. And as you can see, it's actually there's quite the differentiation between the tones. So, but I think it interacts pretty well so far. I'm going to try, as I said, this red is nice. And I'm just going to keep going, get a nice coat over it. There we go. What I'll do is I'll stop here, and I'll wait till it's all dry, and we'll get back, and we'll look at how the red paint covered a Zenithal priming. All right, so I let it dry, and so I did the Blood Angels Red on the body. I used the yellow, the end in yellow on the little puff here, and as you can see, okay. Black and gray, and then Gilliman flesh on the horns. Just try a few different tones to see how they all work with the Zenithal approach. And so let's start with the reds. As you can see with the reds, it works. It's really dull. I've noticed that. Like, it's really dull under anywhere that's not the Wraithbone. It's kind of dull. As a quick edge highlight could make it really maybe stand out a little more. It works, but it's dull. Same thing with the yellow. As you can see in the bright areas, it's yellow, but in the dark areas, it's like a green. It's shaded for sure, and it does have a little dimension having a Zenithal approach, but it's like it works, but it's not my preferred. The horns are okay, and then the gun, the black and the gray, I find work pretty much over the approach anyway because they're black and gray. But what I'm more intrigued about is the yellows and the reds, right? You want colors to be vibrant and bright, so it'll work. It's just dull. Like, as you can see, that's pretty dull over the black or the gray areas, and I intentionally highlighted the last part with Wraithbone to make it more vibrant. And anywhere that you can see the Wraithbone hit, it is nice and it's nice and bright, or brighter. And anywhere that is not hit by it is pretty dull. So it'll work. It'll add a dimension, but the paints are a little dull. As I said, not the biggest fan. I wouldn't probably take this approach. And if I did, it would just be a gray and white combination, or gray Wraithbone and white. Maybe it could work, rather than black gray Wraithbone or black gray white. But it works. Just not my. I don't think this is the best application of these contrast paints. That's what I'm going to say here. So there you have it. In the end, it was it created an okay appearance. You know, as I said, it's not terrible. It's just dull. And I think once again, a highlight would really make these colors pop. It does work. I think like the color, like the yellow, it works. It has some very heavy shading and it appears almost like a green in the recesses. The red seems to work pretty well. The black and gray worked pretty well as well because they're so dark. And the Gilliman flesh worked well as well. But as I said, it just leads to a bit of a dull appearance. Anywhere that was black or gray was pretty dull. The Wraithbone brought it semi to life, but even then. So in the end, has a lot of depth. But most importantly, what do you think? Leave comments in the comment section down below what you think about these contrast paints in general, using a Zenithal approach and painting them over said approach. And what do you think about them overall? Let's create a discussion in the comment section down below. And as always, this video is brought to you by my Patreon campaign. As you can see, their names go by my head. It's because of them that I keep making these reviews. And so if you want to help support my videos, please check out the link in the description below and support my Patreon campaign. Stay tuned for more reviews, and especially a couple more videos on these new contrast paints. Until next time, this is Jay saying happy painting with the new contrast paints.